We've talked a little bit about Marnie Libok. Obviously, he had a interesting experience, I would say, at the Rugby World Cup last year. Obviously, he was kind of given the keys, and then the keys were quickly taken off him. Definitely have questions about what that does to a player's mindset and their confidence. But I guess running parallel to that was young Carter Gordon from Australia, who was taken to the World Cup by everyone's favorite Chaos Goblin, Eddie Jones, as the only number 10. But obviously that was a pretty horrible campaign. And again, probably really hit his confidence. We've now had news this week in the wash-up from the Super Rugby franchise, the Rebels. They're being disestablished. They're not going to be part of Super Rugby next year. So he was obviously looking for a gig for 2025, and he's found one, but it's not in rugby union. It's in the NRL. He's signed a 2-year deal with the Gold Coast Titans. He's obviously young, so he could potentially come back to union. But I think in my head, this gives us a pretty good idea around what Joe Schmidt was thinking, as on the exact same day as they announced Carter Gordon was leaving, they announced that Rugby Australia and the Brumbies have re-signed another first five, Noah Lolesio. So in my eyes, I think Joe Schmidt probably gave Carter Gordon like the don't come Monday, and Noah Lolesio is probably going to be picked in his squad. I'm pretty eager to see what Joe Schmidt does. As a Ireland fan, how do you see things kind of playing out for him in Australia?
I feel like it's a perfect fit, honestly, because like what he brings is structure, right? And Australia at the World Cup just looked like rudderless. Like, just looked
100%.
like Eddie just said to them, like, yeah, just go out and play. Like,
No, but he literally did. In that, I don't know if you've read the article in the Sydney Morning Herald. Some of the Wallabies players speak under anonymity, and they said that he said to them, we're not having attacking structures. You're just going to go out and play what's in front of you. He literally said that. So you're a very astute read.
I remember seeing a Squidge Rugby video about it when he was still England coach, and talking about how he was trying to like pioneer this kind of positionless attack where everybody's able to fill multiple roles, and it's just about like pace and momentum more than anything else. And like there were like times where it almost worked for England, but you know how realistic that is to pull off. Certainly when, how long did he have before the World Cup with Australia? What did he have, like 6 months?
Yeah,
even that.
Something silly.
Yeah, but so Schmidt will solve those problems. He'll get the set piece working well. He'll come up with ingenious strike plays off the line out. He will give them like a good attacking platform. But then it seems like talent-wise, they, for all the doom and gloom, they still have quite a lot of talented players.
I agree. I was watching the Brumbies this weekend. Obviously, they did get thumped. But when you think about the lineup, they had the likes of, Noah Lolesio, Tom Wright at fullback has been incredible. The Reds have some amazing players on their team. The Rebels put in a pretty good performance. They made it to the finals for the first time ever. So, I don't think talent is the problem. Maybe depth more so.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
Yeah, but with, I guess, David Nusafora coming in, and he obviously built quite a good system sort of in Ireland around, I guess, developing talent in that pool. So, I think it's going to be super interesting. If this is the year that we lose the Bledisloe, Joe Schmidt's first year, I'll be very upset. But, so some interesting moves happening in and around the Wallabies at the moment. I would imagine Ben Donaldson, who plays for the Force, will be the other number 10 who comes in. He was at the World Cup last year, but as a 15 kind of utility back cover, and then got put in at 10. But they're taking on Wales, which we were saying earlier, is this the perfect matchup for them at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said to you, these two teams deserve each other right now. Like the unions have not been brilliantly managed, right? That's all the information that we're getting. Like comedy stuff from both of them. Like the Australian, what was the previous guy called? Hamish something, who
McLennan. Ugh.
Yes. And he had a handshake deal with the French that they get $1 million from one of the warm-up matches that they played before the World Cup, but nobody ever wrote it down. So when they came looking for the money, the French were like, don't know what you mean. Like that's like Bush League stuff. Anyway, on to hopefully better things in this tour. But if you're talking about the Aussies maybe having a problem with depth, for Wales, those problems are deeper. They definitely seem to be struggling. There's only one out half in the squad. There's a there is a backup player, but 10 isn't his main position, so it's all on Sam Costello going into
It's
this.
giving Carter Gordon. It's giving Carter Gordon.
I know, like it's so crazy that anyone would look at what happened to Australia in that World Cup and think that is a good strategy. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah, and I mean, looking through that squad, there was a lot of controversy about Corey Hill making it in despite playing in Japan in the second tier, and that's not to say anything about the legal issues that are kind of hanging over it like a black cloud. But they didn't pick Morgan Morris, back rower for the Ospreys, and the Ospreys were by far the best performing Welsh region in the URC this year. They snuck into the playoffs right at the end of the season. They had a great little run. And the fact that that player wasn't selected, quite a lot of fans are like, well, what? How does that work?
What more can you do kind of question.
Well, yeah, exactly. But what's crazy is for all the doom and gloom, there's still some like really big names and really good players in that Welsh squad. Like they've still got Jack Morgan. They've still got Wainwright, who was so good in the Six Nations. Tommy Reffel. But when you get outside of the second row and the back row, you look at it and you think like, God, they are lacking there.
Do you think that lack of depth contributed to Liam Williams' call up? I thought he still plays some great rugby, but it was quite surprising to see his name in there, particularly with him being in Japan now kind of long term.
I was surprised because if there's one place where they don't need it, it's probably 15. Like Cam Winnett was really good in the Six Nations. In a really weak team, he still managed to stand out. And he just looks like one of those players. He just needs minutes playing for Wales. Like they just need to get him out there as much as they can so he can get more comfortable. But he looks like someone who's not going to be overawed by it. So I am, unless they're thinking they just wanted to get some senior players back into the squad, maybe Liam Williams drives really high standards in training, right? Like you don't know what the intangibles are attached to all of these guys, but I was surprised to see him because I thought if there's one place you need this, it's not 50.
It's not necessary. It's not necessary. Yeah. Well, I guess the other question I kind of got from the Wales squad is similar to some of these other squads, really. Who the heck is going to be the captain? Wales have had, 4 captains in the last 12 months? Is that right?
Yeah, I think, to be fair, now that he's fit again, I think it will be Jack Morgan.
Yeah.
He's got, like, real Sam Warburton vibes. Like, you just look at him and you think, like, that guy's a leader. That guy's going to be around for a long, long time. Who are they going to go with for the Wallabies? Who did Jones pick? Skelton, didn't he, before he got injured?
Skelton, but prior to that was James Slipper, Alan Alator. There was like 4 captains, 5 captains last year. It was silly. So I don't.
I mean, surely Skelton if he's fit, because that's a guy you can really build a team around, right? Like that's a guy you can hang your hat on as long as he's fit.
As long as he's fit, he's a big boy, like staying in prime physical. You know, like he's lugging so much around the park. I don't even know how they like. He's so big. But in saying that, I remember when he got the captaincy and he was like, I've never been a captain before. I did not expect this at all.
Isn't that the most Eddie Jones thing? To call someone up and be like, surprise.
He literally did just like walk around like this for you. I don't know. Well, it's hard to even know who the veterans are kind of going to be.
Yeah. Do you think that's actually a good question? Do you think Schmidt will be conservative in his first selection after what happened at the World Cup with picking so many youngsters? Like, do you think he's going to try and stock it with more experienced players where he can? Or do you think it's a refresh and maybe it's a new look Aussie squad?
I'm thinking about it in the context of him technically at this stage only being on a 2-year contract, right? He's only signed until the Lions tour. So if that with that in mind, I think he'll be relatively conservative and try and, I think, instill in those kind of mid to longer term players the structures and the kind of behaviors and level of professionalism that he expects so that can be carried through by them into the next kind of 2 years following his contract if he doesn't sign on again. That would be my expectation, but who knows? I also get the feeling that Joe Schmidt, he knows kind of the PR public perception game that he has to play with the Wallabies. Like, I don't know if you've seen, he's been fronting like all these kind of Gen Z-ified hot box like videos doing like rugby's cool, come with rugby, I'm Joe Schmidt, you know, because they've obviously got a bit of an issue with sharing the audience with AFL and NRL and cricket and football. because it's just not the top sport. So I anticipate there's that kind of lens on it too, that he has to really sell the Wallabies to the public. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles that.
This is no shade at all to Joe Smith. He was an amazing coach for Ireland. Personally, seems like a very nice man. But can you think of a worse guy to sell rugby to kids? He's like a school teacher.
Well, he literally is, isn't that's his trade? Right?
Oh, was he actually a teacher?
I'm pretty sure he was a teacher. But yeah, no, absolutely. And I think he was known for like the media side of the game he had no interest in. But I will say he put in a pretty, I'll send you the link. He put in a pretty good performance. He seemed relatively happy in front of the camera, comfortable.
Yeah.
He was like happy to be there. I was like, good on you, Joe. Good on you.
Yeah. Well, I'm rooting for him because what he did, his Ireland tenure ended quite badly. Like there was quite a lot of negativity about him by the end of it. But like what he did with that team, like he really did take them from a team that could have a big emotional day and beat one of the big teams at home. And he turned them into a team that could consistently compete with big teams. And, you know, there was a shelf life on the way they played. And that's the nature of elite level sport. Like you do get found out when you're at the top. That's how it works. But to take a team that has historically achieved not very much and do what he did with them, I can't believe he's not going to at least bring the Aussies up several levels, you know? I don't think it's going to be like, it's not going to be shambolic under him anyway. You can be sure of that.
No, absolutely. Like you say, I think the structure will be something probably those players are begging for.
Yeah, you would think so, right?
Yeah. Like they must have. I saw a clip from Carter Gordon's girlfriends doing like vlogs on TikTok, and I came across one the other day, and it was their move from Melbourne to Brisbane or wherever. Okay. And Carter Gordon had his Akubra, the hat that they wore when they flew out of the airport that everyone's seen, and he put it on, and she was like, does that not give you PTSD? It gives me PTSD. Like just such a shambolic, awful time that I'm sure Rugby Australia is so keen to step away from, but they probably won't be able to until that first Wallabies team runs out against Wales in a number of weeks. So game on, well and truly.
And you know, as soon as we've done it for all the others, who's got the most to lose? I think it's the toughest one to call of all three tours.
If so, the Lions tour tickets have already gone on sale and sold out. I think if that hadn't already happened, I probably would have said Australia. But because it's kind of done, maybe I'd say Wales. But in the same breath, like it's been some consecutive losses for Rugby Australia, right? Like no Aussie team in the final for Super Rugby, Rebels disestablished, losing players now to other sports. A Wallaby loss at home to Wales would be, I don't think nail in the coffin, but pretty tough to kind of sell the public on.
Yeah, that's very true. Like when you put it in that context, because it's not just losing a one-off game, is it? It would be the latest in a series of things. And I mean, I guess actually on the other side, there's a lot of negativity around Welsh rugby, but no one's expecting them to go and win in Australia. So if they even put up a good performance in 2 tests, they can point to progress. Because, you know, in the Six Nations, they had good 20 minutes here and there, but like they never had, I mean, they had a whole good half against Scotland, to be fair, but they never had a full performance, right?
Yeah.
So I guess from their perspective, maybe if they can just play well for a full 80, that's the next step, right? You can't.
The bar is in hell. How much rope do you think Warren Gatland has?
Oh, so much. Because if you get rid of him, who do you bring in?
So true.
Who would take that job? Like
Ian Foster?
I mean, if you could get him, it'd be amazing. But I think he'd be tearing his hair out. Like, I mean, by the end of the Six Nations, Gatland's telling reporters, "Oh yeah, I said I'd resign, but they told me not to." Like, I don't know how you're supposed to make success happen in what's clearly a bit of a basket case in the WRU. And I think they picked Gatland because he's at least been there before, right? And everyone knows he's a steady character and he's resilient and he can probably cope. But for him to come out at the end of the tournament and be like, I offered to resign in there and they told me you have to stay. No one's doing that unless they're very near the end of their own rope. You know, I think actually the question is, can Gatland stick it? Not will Wales stick him.
Oh, he's like, get me back to Hamilton ASAP.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, no, it's a big job and worse than he maybe thought it was
Yeah,
going in.
probably.
Oh, so
But you
much,
know,
so much happening.
the one thing that him and Wales will have is like so much changes so quickly in professional sport, especially in rugby. When you're only playing 10 games a season, like one big performance can turn everything around. So they'll I mean, but they are in like hoping for a miracle stage, I think. If they want things to change quickly. But you know, internally he's probably thinking next World Cup. Right? He's probably like, we lost a generation of players at the last World Cup, players that they could rely on for years, like bigger and really good servants to Wales. So he's like, you're not, you know, he's probably thinking you're not going to pick those up in a day, right? You're going to have to mold some new players like that, and hopefully by the time they go to Australia for the World Cup, they're closer to their former selves.
Yeah, absolutely. Succession planning in rugby is so interesting. You look at probably who got it done the best was probably South Africa, with the fact that they won 2019 in their plan to win 2023 by complete accident. You know, it was just like they blooded people the right way. They got people in that World Cup environment who then were able to back it up 4 years later. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just building a culture, isn't it? Like, I think it shows when you think about strategy, I think you often think that things are like planned to the nth degree, and that like they have like a real year one, we do this, year two, we do this. I think often it's not that tight. I think maybe somewhere like Ireland, I think they plan like that. But South Africa, I think they get as many players in the shirt as they can who they think are up to it. And then aside from that, it seems like they're really focused on just getting the environment right and getting people's mindsets right. And then you kind of hope that everything else falls into place.
Well, if you get the environment right, it shouldn't matter who the players are that come in, right? They should be able to come in and flourish and develop into better players, and then be able to take on the test environment. So it becomes, less about the players, more the environment and what you're creating.
And I guess that then enables you to focus on the details for each game the way that they do, right? Like Chasing the Sun, especially Chasing the Sun 2, watching it after the World Cup, like the level of detail they went into for every game. Like Felix Jones scouring YouTube to try and find video clips of France training and stuff like that. Like, it really is amazing. But we've wandered a long way from Wales and Australia.
Are you saying it's not the most intriguing matchup of this whole series?
Well, I'm saying that's the perception. I wonder if when it comes around, it'll be more interesting than everybody thinks. But it's definitely, if people are going to put them in tiers, you know, I think Ireland and South Africa, just because of the rivalry edge, is probably the most hyped. And then you've got England, New Zealand, which might be the best test series, to be fair. And then Wales and Australia, unfortunately.
But what if they're proven wrong? Come on, Wales and Australia, pull it out of the bag. We know you can.
So on that really encouraging note, we hope you enjoyed the first episode of the podcast. We will be back whenever they announce squads, previewing the games when we get a bit closer to the matches, and just generally making sure you've got your Northern Hemisphere and your Southern Hemisphere perspective. So yeah, Ella, do you want to tell them what to do?
There's a big old button somewhere down here. If you could like and subscribe it. Whoa. There's a big old button somewhere down here. If you want to hit like, hit subscribe, it would be very much appreciated. We're here to service all of your Northern and Southern Hemisphere needs as we progress through this very exciting summer series.
And if you're on TikTok, give us a follow. I'm at RugbyNause. Ella is at
Ella Ferguson 5.
Cool.
Lovely. Thank you.
See you next time.